Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating engineering story.
It really is.
We're charting how fine-tuning a huge language model went from, needing a massive data center to something you can do on a single graphics card.
A consumer card, even. It's a story all about shifting bottlenecks.
So where does this story start?
It starts with a crisis, really. Before 2021, if you wanted to do full fine-tuning, or FFT, on a big model like GPT-3 175D,
Well, you couldn't. Why not?
it came down to what you could call the VRAM triad. You had to load the model's weights, obviously,
Okay.
then the gradients for learning, and then the optimizer states, all that working memory.
And at 16-bit precision, that added up to what?
It was over 1.4 terabytes of VRAM, just
Mhm.
completely, utterly untenable.
Wow. And even if you could somehow train it, you'd immediately hit another wall, right? The deployment wall.
Exactly. For every single new task, you'd have to save a new 350 gigabyte checkpoint.
It's just impossible to scale that. You solve one problem and another one pops right up.
Which brings us to the first big breakthrough. Lora, low rank adaptation.
And the core idea behind Lora was what exactly?
It was this amazing insight that the actual change in the weights during fine-tuning, it has a very low intrinsic rank. It's a simpler structure than the whole model.
So you don't actually change the original giant model?
Not at all. You freeze it. You leave it completely alone and just inject these tiny, trainable, low-rank matrices into it.
And how much of a difference did that make?
Oh, it was orders of magnitude. We're talking a reduction in trainable parameters of up to 10,000 times.
10,000.
Suddenly, your task-specific checkpoints are just a few megabytes. You
Yeah.
swap them in and out. Deployment problem solved.
And no extra latency at inference time, which is huge.
Zero extra latency.
Oy.
You just merge the small matrices back into the big one before you deploy. It's algebraically clean.
But this isolated the real stubborn bottleneck, didn't it? Lora was clever, but you still had to load that entire 16-bit base model just to get started.
Right. For a 65 billion parameter model, that's still 130 gigabytes of VRAM. So anything over 30B was still locked away from prosumer hardware.
Which sets the stage for the final breakthrough.
Lora. The mission here was it was radical. Fine-tune a 65B model on one 48 gigabyte GPU.
Shattering that 160 gigabyte barrier we just talked about. How on earth did they do that?
This is where the engineering gets so clever. They take that huge 16-bit base model and they quantize it all the way down to 4 bits.
4 bits. Okay, and then they freeze it. That's the big VRAM save.
That's the save. But, and this is the key, the tiny Lora adapters stay at full 16-bit precision.
And you still get 16-bit performance because the gradients, are passed through the 4-bit model into those high-precision adapters.
Precisely. But making that stable required 3 very specific technical pillars. The first one was 4-bit normal float, or NF4.
Right, special data type.
It's an information theoretically optimal way to quantize. It gives more precision to the weights around 0, which is where most of them are.
Right.
It keeps the accuracy high.
Okay, pillar 1, what was 2?
Double quantization. They actually quantize the quantization constants themselves.
Wait, they quantized the things used for quantization?
It sounds wild, but it saved a critical 3 gigabytes of overhead. Every bit matters.
And the last piece.
Paged optimizers. It's basically a safety net. It uses NVIDIA's unified memory. So if you have a sudden memory spike, it just pages the optimizer states to your normal CPU RAM and back again. No more out-of-memory crashes.
The result was Guanaco 65B, trained in 24 hours on one GPU, and the performance was, 99.3% of ChatGPT on the Vicuna benchmark?
Yeah. I mean, we lost practically nothing in capability.
And that's the real shocker. That success democratized everything. A 30B model is now fine-tunable on a 24-gigabyte RTX 4090.
It maps SOTA models right onto commodity hardware.
So we solved the VRAM problem, but what's the new bottleneck? It feels like there's always one.
There is. Lora trades memory for compute, so training is now slower. But there's a deeper, more structural issue that the research is pointing to.
What's
Recent analysis shows that these Lora-trained models, they're creating intruder dimensions in the weight matrices. Behaviorally, they're the same on a benchmark, but structurally, they're different.
And that raises a huge red flag for something like continual learning, right? For lifelong AI.
A massive red flag. If the underlying structure is being compromised for a single task, can it really learn continuously over the long term?
So you really have to reflect on where we go from here. It seems the field has to move beyond just chasing benchmark scores. The question for everyone building these now isn't just, does it work for my one task?
Is this model structurally sound enough for robust lifelong learning? That's the whole new challenge.